welcome, Helen. I particularly liked what you said about it being Yusuf's first book, not because it's first, but because that implies that there are going to be more, which is really exciting news. So that's a high note to start on. So from the work that I do, I spend a lot of time talking to executives, and especially CFOs. And what I always come away with from my interactions with them is this knowledge that they are deeply thoughtful people. And usually if they're heading a company's finances in South Africa, they are quite optimistic people. And I will note that Yusuf in particular is an extremely thoughtful person, but that he also has that enthusiasm, that optimism, and those quirky insights, which have now translated into a book. And that's amazing, Yusuf, because I'm a writer and I haven't managed to write a book yet. So really well done to you. And yeah, just well done for bringing this thing to life. And to start with, please just tell us what it was that inspired you. How did you go from the things you think about to this?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And firstly, thank you so much for being here today. I see friends, family, colleagues, people from way back when as well. So thank you so much for being here today. What inspired me? I was frustrated. I was very frustrated. I think we have these thoughts in our minds about how the country can be fixed. And we always sit at boardrooms and coffee tables and braais and just complaining about how can we fix things. And we have all of these ideas over time and we don't do anything. I don't do anything with it. And in about February last year, the Minister of Finance tried to say a speech. He tried to present the budget speech, and it was a circus, and the budget speech got thrown out completely, and eventually a few weeks or months later, he presented that budget speech, and I honestly thought it wasn't as good as it was supposed to be. In fairness, they wanted to increase the VAT by 2% and give more social grants and stop there. So what I did was I wrote an article, and I said, if the finance minister was a CFO, how would a CFO run the country? And I published that article in about May 2025. The problem with that article was it didn't do justice to the thoughts in my mind. And over a couple of days of writing that article, I realized that this shouldn't just be an article. It needs to be a lot bigger than that, and it needs to go into a book. But I still didn't decide to write the book then. Over a few days, I had two discussions with two totally different people, and both of them asked me, Yusuf, when is the book coming? When are you going to write the book? And that for me was a trigger point. So around about the first week of May, I just took my computer out and I started working and working and working, and I put the book together. But it was more around the frustration that things are not getting fixed, things are broken, and we need to find a way to fix things in the country.
Okay, that's great inspiration. And it's so much the feeling that I took away from reading the book. It's that sense of everybody sitting around a dinner table or a braai and moaning. But we have the solutions and we have the opportunity to think of those solutions. And so here those are articulated. And that's what's so uplifting about the book, is that it's not a moan fest, it's a solution fest. So well done, and that's really exciting. I'm going to get back to the content, but finance executives are unbelievably busy people. I don't know people who work harder than finance executives. So this is a process question. When did you find the time? You have two small children. What are you doing?
So for those who know me, I don't sleep. I sleep for 3 or 4 or 5 hours at most at night. But the book got written every single day. I worked on it a little bit, whether it was on my phone, making notes on the computer late at night, and I worked long weekends, and just finding the hours or the time to do that. So as much as I've got a day job, I just made the time to make it work, and I need to catch up on sleep after this now.
That's quite some sleep debt. Yeah, but that, I mean, I've heard that from people who squeeze a lot into the day, is that you kind of don't think with boundaries. You just think of doing it all and getting it done. So congratulations on that process. I want to read a little bit from page 78. Information is power, but only if it's connected, accessible, and used to make better decisions. In South Africa's public sector, data often exists in silos. One system tracks procurement, another monitors service delivery, and a third handles payments, and none of them communicate with each other. The result is delay, duplication, and missed opportunities for real-time insight. A modern CFO would not tolerate this. They expect integrated dashboards, live updates on execution, and the ability to act when things go off track. Government needs the same, not only systems for reporting, but also systems for managing. Currently, too much public sector decision-making is reactive because the information arrives too late or isn't trusted. Officials often rely on anecdotal evidence over hard data, while performance reports accumulate with little consequence. As much as this is a technical failure, it's also a leadership one. If we want to govern in real time, we need to see progress in real time. That means integrating procurement, payment, HR, and project systems, or at least creating centralized interfaces that surface performance signals early. This means training decision makers to not only receive data, but also to understand and use it. In addition, it means shifting the role of reporting from what happened to what needs attention. Now, this is huge. This is huge among finance executives. It's the whole finance transformation journey in a nutshell. Finance executive CFOs are often talking about how we have to spend less time on looking back and more time on looking forward, which is a good lesson for any business and I guess for any country. So obviously CFOs are entrenched in this kind of thinking. Why do you think that CFOs are the right people to think like this or to come up with solutions like this?
CFOs often think long-term. I'll give an example. If we were going to put a budget together for any company today, we think of what our revenue is in 10 years' time and what our strategy is in 10 years' time. You can never budget 2 years in the future, but you can still plan for what you want to do 10 years from now. The problem with government is that often they work in cycles of political cycles. So if someone is elected today, they'll work for the next 3 or 4 years, and then you move into election cycle, not thinking of what's going to happen in years 6, 7, or 8 because you want to get re-elected. Whereas the CFO thinks about legacy. Even if I'm not going to be in this job in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time, I want to leave this place in a better position so that whoever takes over can build on what I'm doing. And that's, I think, what every CFO wants. You want to leave a legacy so that whoever takes over from you has a strong foundation to build it even better.
Okay, and that's the message here. So South Africans are always sold on a Springbok story. So there's a Springbok section in the book, and I don't know if you want to give just give us a little précis of I love the two contrasts. So being the underdog and then being the leader of the pack, and how that informs strategy, game strategy.
Chapter 10, Winning Like the Springboks, was my favorite chapter to write. And I think it was the second or third chapter I wrote, because when I wrote the book, the Springboks were playing and they're unbeatable and nobody can actually get the upper end on them. But there's so many leadership lessons we can learn from the Springboks. So I speak about the current team with Rassie Erasmus and how nobody can beat them. But what we often forget is that there's 15 guys on the field, there's 7 or 8 of them on the bench, but there's another 30 or 40 people in the background trying to build that team and get them to move forward. So as much as the Springboks are this high-performance team, they struggle to win. They have to do so many things right just to get the upper hand and get one more point on the scoreboard. So it's more of a leadership lesson from the Springboks rather than a finance.
Sure.
But more important than that, I spoke about the 1995 team because on paper, we weren't meant to win that World Cup. We weren't meant to get to the second round or the semi-finals. New Zealand was meant to win. We were meant to lose the first game in that World Cup. But we won every single game. And not because we were the smartest team or the fittest team or the strongest team, by no means. We were just the team with good leadership and a lot of people backing the system also.
It's a great story, and I think that the whole of South Africa felt the pain of that 1 point and the glory of that 1 point. So, as you say, a leadership lesson. Another section of the book that I found really fascinating was when you spoke about the other countries, lessons from other countries. And I think it's such a thing because we've got this sense that countries are like this slow but continuous ship moving in a direction, and the changing direction or fixing anything is almost impossible. But you listed lessons that we can learn from different countries. So can you give us just like 1 or 2 of those countries where they've thought like a CFO and done a thing?
Okay, so let's think. There's a case study section. We speak about Greece. We speak about Botswana. Indonesia, India, and Brazil. I think for me, Botswana was the nicest one because Botswana sits on lots of diamond reserves. And they didn't just mine all the diamonds, use the money, and lose it afterwards like many countries do. They actually thought about the future. And the case study goes into a lot of detail, and I'd like people to buy the book and read it rather than me explaining
Telling the whole story.
everything. But the lesson from Botswana is that they had these epic diamond reserves. They mined it, but they invested in the future. Yes, they had problems, and the problems are explained in the book also, but they were forward-thinking. They thought about what they needed to do in the next 10 or 20 years with the reserves that they had right now, not just thinking about the next 2 years.
And it's so great that it's an African story and a neighboring country story. So it can be done. So I noticed that one of the things that you touched on also is climate disaster, which feeds into some of the work that you've been doing recently. And I thought that was such a relevant thing because I think that a lot of countries are still putting their fingers in the ears. My mom lives in Portugal, and she's currently dealing with the most horrendous flooding in the region that she's in. Trees keep falling in the roads because it's a mountainous, forested region, and they've had unprecedented wind and rain. Whatever countries thought that they should be doing to get things right, addressing climate change is just becoming such a huge contributing factor. Could you talk a little bit around that?
ESCOM is a big problem in the country. I'll start by saying that.
Yes.
So not climate change. And many people have solar panels and generators, not because of climate change, but because the grid is going to collapse. Whereas we should be getting solar panels because of climate change. I mean, just to give a few examples, we're going through one of the worst heat waves in Southern Africa in the last decade that we haven't seen ever before. The droughts are ridiculous, but at the same time, the floods are ridiculous. I know there's actuaries in the room and they would have seen the stats. I think if you look at the last 30 years, there was maybe 1 or 2 floods in Southern Africa every single year. And in the last 5 years, there's been too many. So floods are happening more often than not. But at the same time, when you go outside, I changed my T-shirt 3 times today because it was so hot outside. And it's already February. So climate change is such a big issue. And if I bring it back to the book, we're not fixing the small things like the load shedding or the water outages or the potholes, and climate change is hitting us hard. So apart from fixing the problems that we can see right now, we need to also plan for the climate change because these disasters are just going to get worse and worse and worse. The sad part about it is Africa didn't even contribute to climate change, but we're paying the biggest price of it compared to anyone else in the world.
Yeah, that's quite something, and that's something that leaders, both in politics and in business, are going to have to start addressing. Anyone who's ever seen me interviewing CFOs in my day job will know that one of the things that I really try to get people to do is tell stories, because it's all very good to kind of tell big generalist pictures, but if you can get down to the nitty-gritty of a real life example, then people can really live your example with you and really understand what it is that you're talking about. So, by the way, there's going to be a Q&A afterwards, so please start thinking of your questions for Yusuf. But my next question is, can you tell us something about from your working career or your history that exemplifies one of these CFO lessons, but in practice in a workplace, so we can understand the parallel? So
the book is called The Bottom Line, but the subtitle is, or the second part is A CFO's Blueprint for South Africa's Turnaround. So we've got a problem, we need to fix it, and we need to turn it around. So I'm quite happy that a few colleagues from a place I worked at many years ago are in the room today, a small insurance company where all of us who are here today from that company were part of the turnaround team, right? And we worked there about 10 years ago. And that's such a fascinating story because all of us joined that organization after it was 10 years old. The organization was very broken and it was struggling, and our job was to fix it, to turn it around in whatever way. And the people who are in the room that remember the story were not only accountants, actuaries, business development, everyone else. And our main job was to fix this company that was about to close down. Now, fast forward a few years, the company eventually did close down, so we didn't succeed with our ambition to fix it, but we got very, very, very close to fix it. 2 specific examples that we did in that company. The revenue was almost at 1 billion rand, which is a big number, and psychologically the 1 billion is like the number any insurance company wants to get to. And the leadership team did such a heroic thing. When they budgeted for the next year, they didn't take the 1 billion and add 6 or 7 or 8%. They took the 1 billion and cut it by 50%. And I remember the budget for the next year was like 500 million rand. And they did that because they knew there was so much bad business that we had. We needed to cut the bad business and start from scratch again. And there was a lot of modeling and actuarial analysis to say that the 500 million would be sustainable for the business. But imagine a CEO going to a shareholder or board and saying, I promised you 1 billion last year. I'm only going to give you 500 million next year. That's scary, and the leadership team were brave enough to actually do that. So that's at a big scale what we did to try and save the company, to turn it around, to get rid of the rot in the company, the bad business, and start up again. The other example I use is a small example because it's easy to say let's get a CEO and cut revenue. But how does each person in their day job fix something? So I remember one of the days someone came to me and said, Yusuf, I need a flip chart. This is a true story. And a flip chart is what? 1,000 or 2,000 rand. And it would have been, our investment income earned more than that in a few minutes every day. And I didn't buy that flip chart. I said, please walk around the building and find a second-hand flip chart, whether it's in our office or the neighbor's office or something. Now, I can't remember if we bought the flip chart or not. It doesn't matter. But the fact is we tried to save costs everywhere. We didn't cut costs and tell people we can't have a Christmas function. We still had a Christmas party or a year-end party, but instead of going out, we had an in-house function. So it wasn't about cost cutting, it was about cost containment and just making the right decisions so that we could step forward and turn this company around. Like I said, we weren't able to do that, but we tried really hard and we got really, really close in getting there.
Okay. 2 really great examples. Imagine the South African government cutting 50% of the rot. I mean, but it is something to consider, and I suppose it is aspects of exactly what you're talking about here. Yusuf, I would like to invite you to please share with us a section of your book.
So today is actually World Book Read Aloud Day.
You did
4th
tell
of
me.
February.
Yes.
And I did prepare something. So I'm going to read a snippet from the end of the book, not to give away the ending, but it's a non-fiction book. And it's an optimistic book. So it's not like I'm going to give away stories in the book by reading this. Right? The subsection is called Now Means Now. And it kind of encapsulates everything in the book to close off. South Africa doesn't need another 10-point plan. It needs follow-through. It needs capability. Above all, it needs to rebuild confidence. Not through speeches, but through results that citizens can see, feel, and trust. We've reached the point where delays are no longer only technical failures, but moral ones. Each time we fail to deliver, we don't just miss a target, we erode trust. And the deeper that trust deficit grows, the harder it becomes to enact any reform at all. That's why this moment matters. The good news is that the tools already exist. The levers are clear and the playbook is in our hands. What's needed now is the will to use it. Delivery isn't just a slogan, it's discipline, a habit, a commitment to act with urgency even when others delay, to stay focused even when others drift. South Africa's recovery will not be built on wishful thinking or vague intentions. It will be built step by those willing to lead with clarity, act with courage, and anchor their decisions in integrity and results. Let's not wait for the next crisis to force our hand. Let's deliver while we still have the choice to lead. Because delivery isn't only the job of government, and this is the important part. It's the discipline of every decision maker, the courage to fix what's broken, and the clarity to act even when no one is watching. Whether you're in the boardroom, in parliament, leading a team, or just holding a clipboard in a clinic, your work matters. You don't need to change everything. But if we address what's in front of us consistently and with integrity, we can shift the system. That's how real reform begins, and that's how we deliver. And just as reference, that's from the end of chapter 15.
Okay, fantastic. Well done on World Read Aloud Day. Are you sure this is your... Okay, now here's... Are you sure this is your first book? Because that was really beautifully worded, as well as the sentiment being great. It really was put across so well. So yeah, thank you, and inspirational words. Yusuf tells me people like to click on things, on QR codes, and there is one at the back. and on the bookmark, which you have on your seats. And that takes you to the 5 CFO levers on the website, which is, if you buy the book, you have it anyway, but it's a great conversation starter and interactive space, and share with your friends. So that's also another way to get this message out and hopefully get the books into the first and second position. That is Yusuf's most fervent hope. And Yusuf says he has one more thing to say.
Yes, so I don't mention names, and those people know who they are. This journey started a long time ago. It didn't start when the finance minister said his speech. It started years and years ago based on all of those discussions. I know many people work in the background. Nobody knows who they are, and they've been working tirelessly to get everything ready, whether it's the small things you see here or the things that you don't even get to see. So just thank you to everyone, firstly, for whatever you've done, and for those of you who actually came here today. I know Sandton traffic is a disaster, and everyone still came, so thank you very much.
Okay.